Yeah, well, I think that whoever is looking towards 2012 and looking to pick up enough votes in order to influence or take over the presidency is going to have to look at how it's appealing to a broad base of folks and not just their own small base. And that means reaching out to groups like Latinos. And one of the things that we're seeing is that the Republicans that had an opportunity under George W. Bush to really bring in the Latinos strongly into their fold, because he got up to 40% of the vote in his last election, they've gone totally the opposite way. And in fact, instead of reaching out to them, they made a decision to isolate them and move away from them, which has been, I think we've seen very clearly, to their detriment in this year. And unless they change course, it's going to continue to go in that direction.
Steve, running the country, is it going to be harder or easier because there has been all this new energy injected by the various Tea Party organizations?
Oh, it'll be much harder, much harder. There's a great tension in the Republican caucus in the Congress between the establishment Republicans, particularly on this question of, for instance, of raising the debt ceiling, a vote that they're going to have to take in the next few months. They can't escape it. And there will be an old guard in the Republican Party that will say, we have to do it, the government has to function. Shutting down the government is not a good thing, because a lot of them were there in '95 and remember that they paid a political price for it. The Republicans did, and it helped the Democrats. But I think the voice of a Rand Paul or Marco Rubio is going to be very strong, saying, no, we pick the fight now. We don't put it off another day. And while their numbers are slight, I think there are only, like I said, those two senators, new senators coming in that are true Tea Party voices. Their voices are magnified, and I think there's two reasons. One is the media. The media will go to them, particularly Rand Paul. I speak, for example, for a newspaper company that owns papers in both Kentucky and Florida, but everyone will go to them because they're very interesting and dynamic figures. And the second thing is they have the fear of primaries to use against other Republicans. Whether they can win general elections or not, the Tea Party has shown they can defeat moderate Republican senators. And so those who are up in 12 or 14 are going to be afraid of that challenge, even more than they were afraid in past cycles of groups like the Club for Growth, which would wield its financial clout to try to defeat Republicans who'd voted against them on taxes and things. So in those regards, I think there will be a great pressure on the Republican Party not to go along right away with raising the debt service, and that makes the functioning of government very difficult.
You do also have the presidential race going on the Republican side, which will begin almost immediately. So you will have candidates there looking to appeal to Tea Party members. The primaries are, by their nature, more divisive events where you appeal to the extremes. So that debate will be going on in the context of new Republican candidates looking to also be on that
So
side.
magnifying their influence on the process.
Yes.
But I would think, if you had to use an illusion or a visual, I mean, the tension or the tightness of the rubber band is going to be tighter, I think, over the next couple of cycles. I think you'll probably see the Democrats become more tax, more spend in terms of their ideology, because they've got more of the liberal members that were able to hold on to office. And I think on the Republican side, you're going to see them be more cut more spending, cut more taxes. And I think the Tea Party influence is going to be more of that, because the by and large the ideology of the Tea Party movement was about cutting spending, cutting taxes, keeping government small and limited in scope. Those are the types of things that do resonate with not just Republican mainstream voters, but also sort of independents that are getting concerned about the size and scope and expansion of government. Some of the other aspects of it, the more conservative social issues, were secondary to those government tax spending, economic issues, jobs, and so forth. So there's going to be some back and forth that's going to be taking place between sort of the establishment Republicans, the new Tea Party elected officials, both in the House and Senate, in terms of being able to say, look, we get the ideology, but there's some practical things that have to happen in order for government to function.
You say more tax, more spend. Have your taxes gone up during the Obama administration?
I think business taxes will go up if we don't extend the Bush tax cuts. I think that's my concern.
Did your taxes go up during? Because mine didn't. Did your taxes go up?
But
I think we're both considered well-compensated Americans. We're wearing suits and nice ties.
Our debt as a nation has increased significantly,
yes,
and
my
children that I'm concerned about what they're going to be burdened with. Their children, what they're going to be burdened with. So I'm very concerned about what's going to happen to their future, the future of our nation and our economy, if we're able to maintain this level of debt that's unsustainable.
You know, Steve noted earlier in the program that maybe the Republicans are breathing a sigh of relief that they don't also control the Senate. But maybe the good thing, now that they run the House, is that they're on the hook for some of this stuff. You know, letting General Motors go down, it's an interesting abstract conversation to have because it wasn't allowed to happen. So you can run against it without having to have really accepted the consequences of what letting General Motors go down really would have meant. So you ran against bailouts and stimulus and TARP and all that stuff without having had to take responsibility for not seeing what would have happened had Bank of America spun into cratering, not seeing what happened if Chrysler went out of business. It's a good political advantage to have. They're going to do an IPO in the next couple of weeks. Was it worth saving General Motors?
That's politics, right? So politics is all about the art of the possible, right? So when you're in the opposition, that's your job, is to be able to point to the other side and what they did and what they didn't do and what you would have done had you been in power. So that's part of the political game. You know, but I think at the end of the day, there were some things that the administration and the Congress had to do to be able to stabilize the economy. Were there things that could have been done differently, that would have been done differently under a Republican administration? Probably. But at the core, some basic fundamental activities had to take place.
My taxes didn't go up. Did yours, John?
I do. Healthcare, while it is not in place yet, does have some taxes coming into play, which have been passed. You know, I do think also these emergency situations show sometimes the parties have to come together and do things against their ideology. But what we're talking about now are these long-term problems, debt deficits, entitlement problems. While I would like to deal with them now, and it's the responsible thing to do, those things are much easier to kick down the road. So unless we have a big double dip and we're asking people to do things against their ideology, I guess I'm skeptical to whether we'll have that cooperation.